Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing M. Weston in the 5-minute pool in ICC. Let's play c5 against M. Weston. We'll have a Sicilian. His rating seems a little bit low. I recall him being in the 2400s before. So, looks like he's adopting some sort of closed Sicilian. Yeah, King's Indian attack style. Bishop g5. It's an interesting move. Let's go here and attack the pawn on b2. So maybe knight bd2 is his idea. I can play d5 if I want to head that idea off. Let's play that. See how he feels about an early exchange on d5. I didn't really think about taking the pawn on b2 because knight c4 seemed like a good reply. So this pawn might just be hanging for a little bit. I'm just going to develop. Knight ge7, get ready to castle, defend the center. You can play rook e1 now, but bishop e6 I think is fine. Not overthinking it. He needs to jump knight to g5, but clearly his bishop is in the way. So maybe he could take and then play knight g5, something along those lines. Okay, so he's actually defending the pawn on b2 now. Maybe h6. Let's do that. Just so that if he takes on e7, now the g5 square is guarded. So he'll be unable to play knight g5. Plays knight e5 instead. Okay, that makes sense. Now I have to watch out for stuff like knight takes g6 in the future. Let's castle first. Does castling allow knight d7 though? Nah, that's nothing. We're fine. Knight d7, bishop takes d7, rook takes e7. It's just a trade. Let's bring this guy to the center. So we have the bishop pair. I don't know how effective the bishop pair is here. Probably not very. I'm just going to play a6. Maybe I want to go queen c7 or queen d6 and attack this knight on e5, and I'd rather my a pawn not be loose in that case. I think just queen c7 is fine. Maybe queen d6 is better. So queen c7, is he going to play d4? Is that the plan? Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. And then maybe I don't want my queen on the c-file. Yeah, maybe queen d6 is slightly more accurate. Let's play that way. So d4, c takes d4. He's actually playing f4 instead. Maybe knight c6 now. I want to dislodge this knight. I'd like to get rid of that. Yeah, let's play knight. Well, knight c6 he takes. This pawn is going to become weak after that. Is the trouble. What about just b5? I can play b5 here, totally. b5, queen a5 probably. Maybe c4 then. His knight comes to d4. b5, queen a5. Or b5, queen a3 even. All right, I'm going to play b5, just gain some space. We need to fight back a little bit in the space category. If queen a3, maybe c4 is decent. But then again, he's going to get this c5 square. If I play rook c8, though, he plays d4 is the issue. Okay, let's play c4, see what happens. We trade. If he takes with this pawn, maybe I'll take with the b pawn. It creates a backward d pawn, but I do get the b file, so maybe I can play my rook over to b8 at that point. He might have two strong knights in the center, like on, let's say, e5 and d4. But we'll have some play as well. No, he plays the knight to c5 instead. Okay, let's take. Maybe looking to play d4 soon. He doesn't have to recapture this pawn right away. He could do something like that. Let's get a rook over, attack his knight. Now, knight takes d3 is likely. Plays rook takes. So f6 isn't really working because of knight f3. I could take on e5. Might not be anything to write home about, though. Or d8. Actually, let's take on e5. I think I like this a bit better. Takes with the rook. Okay, let's take again. We'll put the rook on c5. I could put the rook on d8 too in order to defend this pawn, but I think it could be a bit more annoying on c5. Like maybe now a5 and b4 is possible. Let's play it like that. King e3 is coming pretty fast though. King e3, b4. If king d4, we have rook c4 check though. Okay, let's get this up. Maybe f6. I'd like to win this pawn outright, but it might be more important to include our king quickly. Could also play b4. That b4 move. Now let's just go f6. I think our king gets good access to the center like this. We might be a tad worse just because of the isolated d-pawn, but I think our activity will be strong. King e6, he has bishop h3. So king e5. King e5, he can get his rook to f7. So let's bring this back. Maybe still bishop to h3, though. Trying to get into e6 and then rook f7. He's trying to play b4. We need to do something about that. Okay, knight to c6, guarding against b4 and trying to go knight e5. Yeah, I wanted to play knight f5, maybe as cover for my king, but I can't even do that because, yeah, he'd be getting in. Okay, we're going to have to start playing quickly now.
Check.
Let's take here. Get our king up. Hope I'm not abandoning these pawns altogether. Bishop d3 might be decent. Bishop d3, g5. Okay. Well, now at least I can play knight e7. So in the event of like rook g8, knight e7, hitting the rook, and also defending g6. This rook is not well placed, though. Maybe I should go active knight e5 instead. Rook g8, knight e5. That's probably better. Maybe with knight to f3
Check.
ideas. 36 seconds remaining. It's a lot of time still. It's a decent amount. This rook is a problem. It needs to be rerouted. There's nothing for it to do on c5. G4. Okay, let's come here. Try to get in with this rook.
Check.
Let's give a check. See where he steps with his king. Goes directly backwards. Okay, now we have this and attack this pawn and h3. That's helpful. Now the d-pawn could be a force, maybe. Highly interesting position.
Time warning.
Let's go take this guy. I'm not going to mess around. Bishop e2 he has. Ooh. Ooh, that's sneaky. That is very sneaky. Bishop d7 ideas. That was the trick. It's going to be a time scramble. Right up to the end, most likely. Trying to keep his king cut off. He might go after my a pawn.
Check. Check. Check.
Let's hit his bishop. We're going to get his a-pawn.
Check.
Let's go, ooh, attack that rook.
Check.
Okay, now only we have mating material. But it's very likely just going to be a draw.
Check.
Yeah, it's going to be a draw. Okay. Well, probably a fair result towards the end. I mean, we were behind in time, and arguably slightly worse with the rook and knight versus the rook and bishop with pawns on both sides of the board. Interesting game. Let's have a look at it. So he chose a pretty innocuous move order, like d3 on move 3. Just trying to get a setup to work with. King's Indian attack setup. And he played it in an unusual way with bishop g5. I have encountered this move before. Not exactly in this position, but this type of idea. Where they try to provoke you into playing like bishop e7 or like f6 or something. A move that would disrupt black's normal flow of development in this line. Because what I want to do is play bishop to g7, knight g to e7, just like I did in the game. So he's trying to disrupt that. So queen b6, knight d2. And like I said, I could take on b2 maybe, but I mean, I just looked at this and it seems like he has good play. Maybe that's kind of a lazy assessment though. The d6 square is actually not that weak when my bishop remains on f8 still. So maybe I could have got away with queen takes b2. So I played d5, just guarding the c4 square instead. Both kind of develop normally. Rook e1, I just block with the bishop. Yeah, maybe h6 is unnecessary, but I just saw that if I castled, he could perhaps play bishop takes e7, knight takes e7, knight g5, and try to exploit the e-file pressure. My bishop can't move because the knight behind it drops. But the computer thinks this is fine. Knight f5, and if take, pawn takes, and the queen defends here. So this is, yeah, probably okay. But I played h6 to be safe, and we swapped. Knight e5, I castled. c3, I played rook a d8. So the engine likes black here. I mean, I do have the bishop pair plus perhaps a small space advantage. I didn't feel like I was better during the game, though. So here it would be good to take and then play knight to c6. Drive the rook back and then play c4. Okay. And open the center / queen side to our advantage. D takes c4, d takes c4. He can't go to d4 without losing a pawn. So knight to d2 and then bishop f5. Bishop g4. With decent activity from the looks of it. I played queen d6. He went f4. b5. Thought a little bit here about what to do. Yeah, I gave this position a good 45 seconds of thought. Didn't really come up with anything good. So I want to get rid of this knight on e5. My original intention was knight c6, but he can just take it, and then this pawn is going to end up being weak. If I take with the queen, I would lose c5 after this trade, so we can't do that. So I'd have to take with the b pawn, but then, I mean, even if he can't play queen takes a6 right away, it just seems like I have a pretty crippled pawn structure. Like c5 is permanently weak. Queen a3 is a good way to pinpoint that. I have to advance, and yeah, my pawn structure will be shredded. So instead I played b5, maybe not the best move. Queen a3, c4, take, take. Yeah, and his knights were a little hard to handle. We enter this endgame soon. I think trading on e5 is correct. So this endgame of rook and knight versus rook and bishop. And I think two factors lead to this about a half pawn advantage for him. One, the bishop versus the knight with pawns on both sides of the board. Traditionally, that favors the bishop. And two, I think my d5 pawn is a bigger target than his e5 pawn. So for instance, I can't really play knight c6 here because he can take on d5 with the rook and simultaneously defend his e5 pawn. So I have to be careful about how I handle this position. I played rook c5. I could also play rook d8, but I thought my rook would just be more passive here. So I'm playing rook c5 with the understanding that he can play b4 if he wants to try to dislodge my rook. But after, like, say, rook c7 or something, if ever he takes here, I can take on c3 at the end. And I'm doing fine. So he brought his king up. I played f6. The computer does not like that move. So the point of bringing the king over to d2 is that now he's ready to play b4 pretty soon. Because after a trade, like, I can't get into the c2 square. So here I should have played b4 according to the engine. I thought about that. I kind of had visions of him doing something like this and trying to create an outside passed a pawn. B takes, but I guess I might be okay. Rook a5, and my rook does a good job of monitoring the a3 pawn and also defending d5 still. I still feel like I need to get my king involved. Maybe I'll be doing that soon with f6. So I played f6
Check.
here. He traded.
Check.
Gave a check here. Computer really wants to play a3. I wonder why that is. I mean, that kind of prepares b4 again. Can I play a4 and lock it down? King d3, knight c6, let's say. Rook f2. I have an awful lot of pawns on light squares that could be targets, should he ever coordinate against d5 or b5. And I guess with this whole knight to c6 operation, I'm kind of stranding my rook on c5 too. Even if I go to c4, there's not really anywhere it can go. And I might be dropping the d5 pawn if I do that. It's a subtle endgame. Accuracy is required. I think given the time differential and me being, minus 1, or him being plus like 1 or 1.25 or something, the draw is pretty decent from here.
Check.
So I tried swapping a little bit. Now he has me in the c-file pin. I kept thinking he was going to go after the g and h pawns quicker than he did, but he never attempted to do that. Like here, a4 looks like it is unnecessary. Maybe just bishop d3 right away and attack this pawn. That looks like the better way to play it. Then if I play like g5, he can probably go after the h pawn. I mean, even like rook h8 directly is probably fine. Or give a check first and then rook h8. Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to play a4. Note that if he plays bishop d3 right here, I don't have the knight e7 resource to defend g6 because my rook would be hanging on c5. So that's bad news. So a4, and then I get to defend the rook. So now this knight is capable of moving.
Check.
And I'm still worse, but I was able to transfer my rook. Here, knight f3 check is also good, or knight c4 even. That makes sense, because if knight f3 check, his king can't wander too far away from the defense of the c-pawn. So something
Check.
like this, the computer actually thinks it
Check.
could just be a draw by perpetual. Yeah, I felt like once I got my rook active,
Check.
I was okay. Here he should play king e3. And what if this? Rook a8 and go after that a pawn. He did this later, but it wasn't enough to win. So king to d1, rook f3. Yeah, now we should be completely fine. Maybe even better if I can do something with the d pawn, but he quickly got behind it and neutralized that pawn before it got going. Now, this is a really, really sneaky trap, king e2. It looks like he's just letting me take g4. But if I take it with the rook, he has bishop d7.
Check.
Pretty sure he saw that. That's just like a devious skewer. And then if my king moves, he'll play bishop takes g4. So I'd have to take with my knight, but now my knight has been deflected from the defense of the rook. So he does this, and he might win with that extra exchange. So he's using tactics to keep the g-pawn defended. Very clever. Yeah, I burned 6 of my remaining 19 seconds figuring out what to do here, because I couldn't believe that bishop d7 was actually working. It took me a couple seconds to realize that's what his plan was. I'm glad I didn't just automatically take on g4. My sense of danger kind of kicked in. And likewise, knight takes is running into bishop d7, and he'll win a piece. So g5, king f2. Yeah, and this is just a time scramble after this. I mean, it might be the case that I'm even better here just because my rook is cutting off his king, and he does have to stay monitoring this pawn. It's probably not enough to win, though. I think with decent defense, white will hold this without too many problems.
Check.
Yeah, and this is a draw.
Check.
But
Check.
if I hadn't won his rook, I might have been flagged because he had about a 5-second advantage. But at least I was able to go win his rook, and not enough time to flag him after that, but
Check.
at least we gave it a shot. So, okay, yeah, I think I played this fine out of the opening. Maybe I could have grabbed on b2. the computer move, queen takes b2. It just looked a little bit scary. I didn't want to fall behind in development. Otherwise, it was largely okay. We were defending a slightly worse position. Maybe here b5 wasn't so good. That led to some problems we had to sort out, and he kind of kept his advantage into the endgame. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll be back tomorrow with another Blitz video. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.